What is up, my dudes? MX Simulator Motivation Guide. So, you probably never ever seen a guide like this for MX Simulator out there. I'm about 100% sure this is a first here. So, the reason why you don't see people make guides like this is because most of the time people just make guides on like a whoop guide or a corner guide or a seat bounce guide or whatever, but they really don't go into the other little things, even though they're really not little things. They're actually more important than pretty much any other part to MX Simulator, but those other little things about the game that aren't necessarily like a certain technique on the bike, but it is a massive part to the game. And one of those things is motivation. And it's kind of like anything. If you don't have the motivation for it, nothing else really matters. If you don't really want to play MX Simulator every night and you don't want to get better at it, then you're never going to get better at it. That's just the truth of it. So I don't care how much somebody teaches you how to ride on the game or whatever. If you don't really want to get good at the game, you're never going to get good at the game. So it's all about that motivation. Well, how do you get the motivation? How do you get that want to just sit there day in and day out and play the game all the time and do all that? That's what this video is all about. It's actually how do you get the motivation to want to play the game, the amount that is required to actually become really good at it, because a lot of people underestimate how much you actually have to play MX Simulator to get good at it. You know, they'll play it for a couple months and then be like, oh, what the fuck, I'm not very good at this game, man. This game sucks, dude. The bike is way too restricted. I feel like I can't even move in the air. It's like, you idiot. You don't even understand. You're going to have to put a lot more time in than just a couple of months of gameplay. And yes, there are some people that get pretty good at the game in like 2 or 3 months, but there's just levels to it. Like, you can think you're good when in reality you're actually not good at all. Like, I mean, you can think you're good because you get a lap time that is like, I don't know, 2 or 3 seconds slower than a pro lap time. So you think like, ooh, I'm about to be pro level or something, but you have zero consistency on the bike. And so at that point, you're actually not even ready to be pro whatsoever. You know, I don't really care if you're getting a pro lap time. Racing is not even really about lap times. It's about how many laps in a row can you run that lap time. It really doesn't even matter what the actual lap time is. I mean, that is like such a small portion of the racing that it's just funny how people think like that, though. They think that just because they get a certain lap time that they're all of a sudden pro at MX Simulator. And it's just, sorry to break some hearts here, but that is nothing how the racing is. It's just not like that at all. The actual racing in the game is totally different than that. I mean, it's just, it is a totally different world than that. It is so different from getting a fast lap time. It is just, it's night and day. I mean, the actual especially once you go from racing in online servers to actually pro racing, that's when you realize what consistency actually is in the game. See, in the little online servers, I mean, you can race, and as long as you're fast, you can pretty much crash and get back up and still win the race. Now, in the pro racing, there's all of these other elements that come into play. You've got a full gate of really fast people, which makes it really hard to move through the pack. So that just adds on to that. If you don't have consistency, you're just going to get stuck in the back of the pack because you can't pass anybody because everybody is fast. You understand? And that also goes with, if you get a good start, everybody's going to be right on your ass bumper. And if you have one little bobble, I'm not even talking about a full dismount. If you just miss one little triple in or anything, somebody is going to land directly on you or fly right by you at any point in time. And so that's something where, like, on the little online servers, you know, it's not really like that. It's just not, especially nowadays where you don't really have quite as many people in the online servers because there's not really a good just standard online server that's running like a bunch of the newer Supercross tracks other than the fucking practice server, but let's not even get into that. So, yeah, when it comes to motivation, what motivated me the most to sit down and just play MX Simulator every single day for almost a year straight. I mean, it was like every night. There for a minute, I mean, I first got into the game, started making like some custom tracks and stuff, but it got to that point where I started getting on the online servers. That's where the real skill and fun came from. I started getting on, I think it was 03 back in the day. I'm sure they still have 03, but they really need to put some newer tracks on that puppy so people will start getting back on there on a more consistent basis and we can start having those fun. Remember when you could just hop on 03 and it was like a full gate and everybody was just having so much fun? This was like back in 2015, 2014, late 14 and 15, and you could get on there and the tracks would be like 14 tracks. It'd be like 13 tracks. Every once in a while they would run the really old ones, but it was still the pretty new tracks back in the day. Well, nowadays when you go hop on 03, you're riding on like 2011 tracks, 2012 tracks. They're way too fucking old for this modern era. And so that's why you see a lot of people not even riding in that server anymore. But back in the day, you could just hop on there at any random night and have nearly a full gate of people on there. So basically what I started to do was just get on there and I would race, and it's kind of that racing syndrome where you get beat by this one dude by like 5 seconds, and you're like, dang, man, I think I can catch him. He's like right there on my skill level. I think I can get to him. I think I can beat him. And when you first start racing in the game, you're obviously going to get your ass handed to you in pretty much every single race. But when you get on these random online servers, you really can find people that are more on your actual skill level. So that's what's cool about it is you can actually get in little battles and stuff with other people that are not even to an amateur level. They're still more of a beginner level. So you just kind of work your way up through the tiers like that. You go from beginner, amateur. Like, I didn't even race amateur in this game whatsoever. I went from racing in the online servers in 03 to pro racing 450 RF main events, like just like that. I didn't do any amateur racing, didn't do any like little, the little just random kind of organized races that they have that aren't necessarily pro races, but I went from just racing random people on 03 to 450 pro main event within probably like I would say somewhere around like maybe a 6-month time period or something like that. Maybe a little longer than that, but it was somewhere around there where I just went from like a dude that couldn't even get around a supercross track to racing in 450 pro main events. So you can definitely do it, but it takes, see where the motivation comes from is you get in those little battles with people and you want to beat those same people. That's what starts to happen. You start to like build these little rivalries in the online servers. And that was a really positive for me back in the day. Was there was like a handful of us guys. I remember Quentin Dees, he used to get in there quite a bit. There was a dude named James Stewart that used to get back in those old servers. Who else? Oh, Michael Gonzalez, I think is his name. Man, it's crazy. I never even see those guys in this game anymore, but those were the dudes that and we didn't even know each other, but every single night we would get on the 03 server and be racing each other, and we knew what was up. We knew it was going to be a fucking battle to the end every single time, and it just... Man, it like taught me so much about the game from back in those days, and just always having to push myself every night because they were pushing theirself to try to beat me, and I was pushing myself to try to beat them every single night, back and forth, back and forth. And that's what built that just like ultimate super skill improvement in such a short time, was racing basically rivals that you wanted to beat so bad. You knew you could beat them. It was just a matter of how the race actually played out, but our skill levels were so close to each other that I mean, it was just as similar as like a James Stewart versus Chad Reed or a Ricky Carmichael versus whoever, McGrath. I mean, it was just like that. We were just right there on skill levels that the races just, I mean, it was all out brawls every single time we were on the gate. And it got to the point where we were lapping everybody else. It would be just between me and one other dude or me and two other dudes. And you wanted to beat that person so bad. And I can't remember, I mean, there was so many of those races where I would build up like a 30-second lead. I would pull the whole shot, build a 30-second lead in front of those guys, and then there would be 15 just random lappers, it was just like a random online server, and then they would run into me, and then I would crash, and that dude would build up all of those 30 seconds worth of time back to catch back up to me because of the lappers, and that taught me so much about, like, you can't get mad. Whatever happens in the race, you can't really get too mad at it. That race is going to play out however it's going to play out. But it taught me a lot of patience in the game when it comes to like lapping people and waiting on things to come to you and stuff like that. That's what it taught me. But it was that motivation that it gave me every single night. I wanted to try to beat those people in the game. That's why I played the game every single night. We were riding on the same tracks, man, over and over and over and over. It wasn't like we were like going to all these different tracks and stuff, the same tracks, Then it was to the point where you really learned each one of those tracks and you knew the other guy really had all the tracks learned too, and you were all hitting the same lines. And I mean, it was just crazy racing, man. It was basically like pro racing, but not in the actual pro racing league. Pretty much is what it was. It was pro racing on the 03 server. That's basically what we were doing, and we didn't even realize it. That's kind of how that worked. I didn't even know what a pro level speed was. I had no idea when I was doing all that. I was just doing it. So it was literally as if I just woke up one day and I was good at MX Simulator. That's how it happened. I went from completely sucking at the game to being really good at the game. I say really good. It's all in how you look at it. But I went from being a guy that just rode in a random online server to pro racing and got into my first 450 main event, the very first race that I actually tried to race pro race in, which was 2015 Daytona. So that was the first pro race ever. That was with no amateur racing, no outside of 03 racing at all. And then I went in there and made it to the main event. I think I got second in the semi. So it's crazy how it all happened when I look back at it. But when I really think about it, like, that was so much time, so much consistent time. That's the most important part about it. It doesn't really matter if you play MX Simulator once a week. Like, that's not really gonna help you. You've got to play it more than that. You've got to play this game like every single night. When I say you got to play it all the time, I mean all the time. Every single chance you get, you've got to be playing MX Simulator. That's how you can even get to the levels that people get to. And the faster you get, the more time you got to put in, the more it just like it builds that. And then you want to prove that you are better. And then you've dedicated all that time in. So you want to put more time in to be even better, and then it's like, oh man, it's crazy. It's just like real life in a sense, where once you start getting really good, then it's like you're trying to prove yourself to everybody that you are good. And then you're trying to beat this guy, so then you got to do it more, and then you get to the next level, and then you got to do it even more to get to the next level. So then it's just like this endless ladder of you basically just play the game all the time. And I have slowed way down on my playing of MX Simulator. I really need to get back to playing it like I used to. It's just there's not like a lot of people racing like there used to be on the online servers. It really has changed in that sense. You can't just hop on 03 and be on like some newer Supercross tracks with a full gate of people. You can't really do that anymore. There's not anybody on there because you got your practice Flowtech server over here that's like running the brand new tracks 5 laps, and you kind of got a split community on that, which it barely has anybody on it anymore. And then you got like a split community of some of the people on the really, really old tracks, it's like we've got a gap between our random online server community base here. So that makes it to where you can't just hop on there and have full gates anymore. But that's what really taught me how to race, though. That's what taught me that racecraft. That's where I get a lot of that from, like learning when to be patient, learning when to go faster. You know, I may not be most of the time, I'm not the fastest guy on whatever kind of track out there, but I can race on anything, man. I mean, I can race. Like, that's probably my best attribute in this game is I'm good at racing. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, I think in my very first pro race, I qualified like 43rd and somehow got in, and then got second in the semi, made it to the main event, first pro race ever. I mean, that just goes to show you I already knew what I was doing in a race sense. A lot of people in this game, they get on their first pro race and they get smoked. They can't even get into the main event because they don't know how to race. They just know how to go fast, which is two completely different things. So, but that's where that real racecraft came from, was getting on there every night with a full gate of people, having to pass 10 million lappers that were going all over the track all the time, and having somebody breathing down my neck all the time, right on my skill level, on those old slick tracks, those old slick ice tracks, man. I know all about it. Damn, man, them were some awesome times. Them good battles we had on those 2014 tracks on the online servers. Man, like it was good times, good practice for me. It was just, man, I'll never ever in all of my days of playing MX Simulator, doing YouTube, all of that, I will never forget the times that I spent on these older MX Simulator tracks racing other people. I'll never ever forget it, because that's what made me good at MX Simulator. I didn't have anybody teach me how to play this game. I didn't even really look at any guides on how to play the game. I didn't do that. I didn't like figure out, okay, this is how you do this is how you do that. I just raced. I just sat down and I just raced. That's where my skill came from in this game. I just raced every single night for almost a year straight in this game. That's where it came from. And for me, a lot of times the hard work and determination and dedication is way more important than the other little trick intricacies. You know, you can outweigh all that if you just put hard work into it. Now, obviously, I learned some things over time after getting into the pro racing, just some little stuff. Wasn't like I really looked at guides then or started figuring out you know, someone was telling me how to do it then or whatever. I became smarter within how the actual game works, which then made me even faster past that level. Then got into the actual pro racing of it, and yeah, man, it's hoping to start doing better in the pro races in this game. It's been rough with this road year here, and then last year, man, I don't know, got on a weird little vibe last year with kind of started changing my setup too much. Started doing some weird stuff like that, and it just had me where I could never get used to it. But the core basis of it is I've not been playing the game enough, period. If I would have still been playing it like I did from day one, back when I built all that skill up, if I would have still been playing this game like that every night to this time, not only would I have been damn near completely burned out of the game, but I would have been really, really good. There's no limit to the skill in this game. You're always building more skill. You're always building more technique, more talent, more smarts on more race smarts, more speed. You're always building there's no cap to it. You don't just feel like you've totally learned the game and you can't get any faster. You can always get faster. You can always get more consistent. You can always get better at racing. All that kind of stuff can get better with this game, always. So, but yeah, that's really where the motivation comes from for me. And if I didn't have that wanting to race in the game, if I was just practicing by myself on this game or just riding on random tracks, I would have never got that good, because I wouldn't have had that thing that was like tugging at me every day to want to win. You know, it's just that simple competitive nature is where that want comes from. It's you just want to beat the next person. You want to beat everybody in the game. You want to be the best at the game. And that's where the want to play it every single night comes from. I don't think you can get really good at this game if you're not into the racing. I just don't think you really can. I think that's the level above just messing around on the game. You know, some people just play this game to throw whips or just ride on random tracks. They don't really race. And I guarantee you those people are never going to get really good at the game. They're just not. You have to get into the racing because you have to have people push you in the game, and you've got to have that something there that's making you want to play it all the time. And if you're a really competitive person like me, the racing part of it just took over, dude. I mean, that was my thing, man. Played it every single night. But yeah, man, either way, that's pretty much the motivational guide. That's all there is to it. You just have to race, and you have to race kind of the same people on your skill level, and you got to want to beat those people. If you don't want to beat those people, then you're never really going to get good, because there's no like carrot on the stick in your mind. That's what it has to have for you to want to play it every night. So yeah, man, either way, appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later, dudes.